All right, we'll start 2 minutes ahead of schedule. Gives us time for questions or whatnot else later. So it's my pleasure this morning to invite our first speaker with 7 talks today, Luca, who will be giving us some information about embedded implant devices, I understand. So I'll pass off to him and he can tell us all about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me fine? Cool. Good morning, everyone. So today I'm going to talk about 5 different offensive devices that can be used during red team engagements, and in my humble opinion can be considered a must nowadays to be used during these kind of engagements. But first, let me ask you a question. Do you remember the Ant catalog from NSA Tau leaked by Snowden in 2013? How many of you heard of that? Okay, only a few. Okay, just a short reminder for the ones that didn't hear about that. The Ant catalog is a 50-page classified document leaked by, well, someone is calling him traitor, Edward Snowden, that leaked in 2013. Can be dated around 2008, the first revision of it. And practically was designed and developed by NSA Tau unit. Tau means Tailored Access Operation, and its division was the Advanced Network Technology. That's why it's called ANT catalog. So what was inside this catalog was kind of a set of brochures about some implants, hardware implants, or hardware tools like IMSI catchers, for example, developed or used by NSA during some offensive operations. Upon that, other guys in the recent years, around 2015, developed some similar tools like those. I'm talking about the NSA Playset guys. Sadly, those devices were presented in Black Hat, DEF CON, and so on. They were released in open source, but they were not available to end users. Because you know that many pen testers out there, red teamers out there, they may be good at development, but their electronic skills sometimes, due to time or an interest, are not coping with that. So they were unable to play with these devices, right? So I came up, me and some friends, with an idea. Create similar devices, mainly for our engagements, that will be released open source, but will be also released as a product. So we figured out that there might be some manufacturer out there interested in making them, selling them, and keeping the profit. Just to make them available to anyone that doesn't have the skills or the time to create them. And upon those devices, I created the so-called adversarial ANT catalog, so adversarial ninja playset catalog. For now, it's just 5 pages because developing during the free time these kind of tools takes time and resources. So more will come in the future. It's kind of classified just to kind of joke about that ANT catalog that was classified as top secret, but then Snowden made it public. So NSA was kind of pissed about that. So it's kind of classified document listing technology already available to any InfoSec ninja by a bunch of hardware hackers to aid in red team operations. So in this case, are 5 of them. I will present all of 5 today. Hopefully, I will show you some demos, time permitting. Which are the main requirements to join the club? So in case you are designing hardware devices for offensive operations, there are mainly 3 requirements to join the club. Being open source, being available to anyone. Like, for example, if we take Hack5 products, Hack5 is a US company, right? So they have the duty to not export these kind of technologies to countries where US have embargo, like Russia, India, probably Pakistan, and other ones. In my case, I wanted any country to have the ability to purchase and use them. So this is the second requirement, available to anyone in the world. And the third one, the most important from my point of view, is being sold at sustainable price. The very first device I created 2.5 years ago, we'll see right away, is called Wind Injector, is practically a rubber ducky on steroids. The first idea was I wanted a rubber ducky that can be controlled remotely and have even more features in it. And of course, I wanted it to be cheaper because I didn't like much the fact that just a rubber ducky that doesn't even have the capability to be controlled remotely still cost $50 and was created in 2010, so like almost 10 years ago. So that were my main requirements for this kind of device. And what it is with Injector? Well, with Injector is a cheap but reliable piece of hardware designed to fulfill red teamers' needs related to HID attacks. HID is not a HID global company for access control system. That we'll see later. There is another tool to attack this kind of access control system. HID here is about USB HID protocol, well, subclass protocol. In this case, HID devices are the ones that you are using every day during your daily life, like mouse, keyboard, joystick, drawing tablets, and so on. Even YubiKey is using a heat row tunnel. So that's the idea of, that's the main target of with Injector. So it's emulating a keyboard or a mouse exactly as a rubber ducky, with the fact that the next feature respect a rubber ducky is that we can control it remotely over Wi-Fi, either as connecting to it as an access point or configuring it to connect to an existing Wi-Fi network. So we can even control even more remotely respect the Wi-Fi range of the access point embedded in with Injector. Let's see briefly how it is composed. Which are the main components of with Injector? Well, the main components are two. A Atmega 32U4 is a Arduino-friendly MCU, which allows to emulate keyboards and mice. So we can inject keyboard keystrokes or mouse movements. And of course, the second part is a ESP12 Wi-Fi chipset. It's one of the most commonly used Wi-Fi chipset within IoT devices. Now there is the next version, which is ESP32. But still, 2 years ago, ESP12 was the flagship Wi-Fi embedded chipset for IoT devices. What we have, thanks to the ESP12, well, the ability to control remotely with Injector. We have 4 megabytes of flash, so we can store really huge amount of payloads, and we can store for different operative systems. So in case you don't need to reflash with Injector when you want to attack OS like Windows or OS X or Linux, Android or iPhone. I made a proof of concept about attacking iPhones. In the latest, well, now it was patched, but in a previous version of iOS, you know that once you plugged a device over USB cable to a iOS like iPad or iPhone, it should pop up an alert, right? In that case, they were not popping up an alert once a with Injector that is emulating a keyboard is plugged it in. So in that case, you can even attack mobile phones. Another thing I added on the PCB is a pinout for weaponizing USB gadgets. We will see later what I mean for weaponizing USB gadgets. And of course, I added a Hall sensor for the ones that are playing with magnetic locks. Practically, it's just a virtual button that gets short-circuited once you swipe around a magnet, right? So in this case, it's easier to unbrick with Injector or to reflash it in case you weaponize the USB gadgets. We will see later what I mean with that. From software point of view, well, some friends helped me on that point. And we have two different software compatible with Injector. The first one is shipped automatically by default with Injector. And has multiple features. My favorite ones are the ESP Portal Credentials Harvester. Practically, is working as a Wi-Fi pineapple. Right now, on release, there is the stable version is limited because you can create a rogue access point, but it doesn't do like HSTS bypass, so SSL bypass or TLS bypass. Though I'm working on a beta version that will implement also karma attacks. So practically, Wi-Fi pineapple big like this. It supports multiple operating systems. You can change layout. Well, here you have probably no problem because you will use the English layout of the keyboard. But in case of countries like Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and so on, that's a must to target some client. It has other different function, like the auto start function. If you want to roll back to a simple rubber ducky, you can potentially. So you just, to set up the payload, which will be run once with injector is connected to the target. It has the ability to change VID and PID, because we know that there are some DLP solutions out there. DLP stands for data loss prevention solutions, that practically they can blacklist or whitelist some specific devices, keyboards or mice. And my favorite feature is the air gap bypass for serial. This is my favorite one because usually when I speak about it to ICS people, so industrial control system people or SCADA people, they get really scared about it. Yeah, do you remember Stuxnet in 2009, 2010 against Iran? Well, that was a malware brought inside the plants through USB flash drives. So everyone nowadays knows that flash drives are bad, but they forgot something about USB devices that I will show you later. Another very cool software framework compatible with Injector is called USAbuse. It was developed by Rogan in 2016, presented in DEF CON, if I remember correctly. And what it does is another software that allows to bypass air-gapped environments. Air-gapped environments is just a machine that is not connected with any other, with any network. Or in case of multiple machines connected each other in a LAN, they still don't have connection to the outer world, so to the internet. So in this case, it bypasses air-gapped restrictions. How? Well, imagine with Injector, of course, is based on one implant created by NSA Tau called Cottonmouth. So we need to thank Snowden for that, for leaking that brochure, because up and on that, we got the idea of developing with Injector, USAbuse, and so on. So the main idea of USAbuse is simple. Once it's flashed in with Injector gets connected to a target air-gapped machine in one way or in another, either a malicious employee or through social engineering by weaponizing mouse or keyboard. We will see later what I mean with weaponizing. It gets plugged in, creates a Wi-Fi access point that can be set as hidden, so hidden SSID, so less detectable, then starts the stealthy screensaver killer. So imagine like there is, okay, the target guy is like, kind of paranoid, but not paranoid enough. So what it means, he set up a screensaver, the screensaver will kick in 60 seconds, right? So instead of locking, it just, take his cup of coffee as while he's walking to the cafeteria, the laptop will be locked, or even outside his office, the laptop will be locked because of the screensaver kicking in. So in this case, USAbuse is slightly moving a 1 pixel every few seconds the mouse pointer. In that way, the screensaver will never kick in. So in the meanwhile that is operative, the guy is going to take the coffee, the screensaver never kicks in, the laptop is unlocked, and then the guy, the attacker from outside the building, on the other side of the floor, on another floor, connects to the Wi-Fi network with Injector with USAbuse, inject a PowerShell script that creates a heat row tunnel. This heat row tunnel is used to communicate with the attacker, so it's like exfiltration channel, right? C2 it usually is used, is called in pen testing, red teaming world. And with that, what it happens? It happens that it returns a command shell, fully real-time command shell to the attacker, and then it's pretty much game over. And this works on a simple computer connected to a LAN, to internet, or even without any connection, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or Ethernet. Due to time constraint, I have no time to show you the POC. Here is the URL. Probably you will see even when we publish the slide or take a screenshot now. But it's really cool. It's really nice. So let's start to talk a bit more about weaponizing devices. Well, the first thing is the most common misconception in the USB devices world. Many people got trained during awareness trainings in corporate environments that USB devices as flash drives are bad, right? If you find one, you report to your security officer, but you never plug it in. Even Secret Services of the United States a few weeks ago failed that simple rule by plugging in a USB flash drive sized by that possibly Chinese spy that was caught around US. I don't recall exactly, but they failed as well, plugging it in. So the idea is that USB devices are not only flash drives. We have plenty of them around. Mouse, keyboard, uh, USB fridge, fan, So in this case, we can use with injector as an implant. So in that case, you can see in the image there is a mouse that was weaponized, and here comes that weaponizing word, with a weed injector. So in this case, we just need to pop out the case, connect with injector to a USB hub controller, and then connect the hub controller to the cable that goes to the laptop, target machine, and to the PCB, the board, circuit board of the mouse. Of course, you can use also other cover cases like that lighter, in case you want, to sneak inside a corporate environment with a weed injector without, many suspiciousness, and in case all flash drives are sized at the check-in. So weaponizing USB gadgets. As I said, we can use weed injector, we'll see later, with delete as implants, and we can pretty much weaponize everything we want that has a USB port. Usually I divide USB devices into categories: smart ones and dumb ones. The smart ones are all those devices that use all 4 wires of a USB port. So you know that in a USB port we have 5 volt, ground, data plus, and data minus. So anything that communicates back and forth data between the USB device itself and the target machine is a smart device. So it can be, again, keyboard, mouse, whatever you want. Then we have dumb devices, like the fan, USB fridge, palm rest. I mean, there are plenty of devices that I didn't know even existed with a USB port. So the point is that now imagine, and this is a real case scenario, why we need to weaponize USB gadgets? Well, sometimes we don't have access to the premises of the target corporate environment, right? So imagine that you make some OSINT, open source intelligence, of some targets within the company. You figure out that some IT guy is the usual, geeky guy that loves beers, for example. So in that case, you buy a USB fridge, you weaponize with injector, you pack it back, you create a fake brochure of office supplies, you create its own website that looks like social engineering, full social engineering engagement stuff. But instead of sending a spear phishing email, you send a lovely packet with a lovely brochure of that of that company. And the guy, most of the times, if you did well your homeworks about open source intelligence, he will probably plug it in somewhere, right? Because he cannot refrain himself to not plug it in a cool USB fridge. So we'll plug it in, create a Wi-Fi network, and then can be hidden, of course. And then from outside the building, the attacker can try to inject keystrokes and payloads. My favorite one was a tweet a couple of years, last year actually. So last year there was the Trump-Kim Jong-un meeting in Singapore, and all delegates from the media point of view received this welcome package with inside a lovely USB fan. And immediately me, John Fitzpatrick, and other hardware hackers thought about implants. Actually, I bought a couple of them. In that case, there were no implants. But the point is that after purchasing a couple of them, there was enough space for an implant there. So, it can be a possibility, actually. Another thing is that thanks to a friend of mine, Paul, okay, with injector, how to use with injector? You connect to its Wi-Fi network, and then you use the browser to browse at a certain IP. Some people prefer the mobile app, so I started to work on that, and Paul helped me out with that, and we created a mobile application with it. So it's even more user-friendly, just to make it easier to anyone to play with that. So it's pretty cool, and it's available on Google Play Store. So that's pretty cool. The second device I created is called With Elite. It's that close to be released because I want to, actually I fixed last week. Hopefully I'm getting the new batch to test when I will be back in Europe in a few days. So finger crossed. What is With Elite? With Elite is a 2G enabled offensive device that allows a threat actor to remotely inject keystrokes, bypass air gaps environments as with injector, conduct mouse jacking attacks, do acoustic surveillance because C executives loves to be heard while in a meeting room. So that's, I don't know, is their secret dream. They don't care about mouse jacking, they don't care about getting to the main controller, but as soon as they hear their voice recorded Without their approval, they get scared. It allows also to conduct some radio frequencies replay attacks and much more from software point of view. So but from our point of view, this is what it does. Of course, I'm scrolling down and not describing this for time constraints, but you can always see afterwards during the when the slides will be published. So how is composed with WeDelete? WeDelete has a Atmega 32U4 as the with injector because we still need to inject keystrokes somehow, emulate keyboards and mice. Instead of a Wi-Fi chipset, the ESP12, I replaced it with mobile basements. I know that I mentioned 2G. Well, actually, it's true. The first version will have 2G, sadly for Australia. But the fact is that many countries, years ago, we heard many providers around the world, we will deprecate 2G, bye-bye 2G, no more 2G. Well, that was kind of a lie. Many operators decided to roll back and keep it for a while because it's still used. And that's why I decided to create the first version of WeDelete with 2G because it's way cheaper than use a LTE basement. To give you an idea, an order of prices from the manufacturer, a 2G basement can cost around €5, $5 US dollars. A LTE and LTE, ALTE basement can cost up to $40. So you see, I wanted to keep the price lower. What I'm pointing at, what I'm aiming at, is the V2 version of WeDelete will have an NB-IoT or Cat-M basement, which means that it will be a cheaper version of the LTE baseband, so will be eventually available in Australia as well. What I added to WeDelete this time was an embedded USB hub controller, because if you remember a few slides ago, with injector needed an external USB hub to weaponize smart USB devices. So in this way, with an embedded USB hub controller, you don't need anything else but just WeDelete to weaponize any smart device. Here you can see some devices I weaponized for some engagements. Some of them are smart, like the keyboard. The others are pretty much all dumb devices, so they just require 5 volts to operate, and then they have plenty of space to weaponize itself with WeDelete. Of course, this is a proof of concept on how to bypass air-gapped environments. This is the same payload I used for WeDinjector. The only difference between WeDinjector and WeDelete is that WeDelete use a mobile provider to communicate as command and control system. So in this case, there is this laptop that is fully disconnected to any kind of network. So no Bluetooth, no Ethernet, no Wi-Fi, nothing. And that keyboard is weaponized with WeDelete. So as soon as the keyboard is plugged in, WeDelete turns on. Of course, that keyboard is still working as a normal keyboard because we have the USB hub controller that is splitting the capabilities in both WeDelete keyboard. So in this case, I send a command from my SMS. I send an SMS from my mobile phone. That mobile phone could have been on the other side of the city or the country. So just for obvious reason, I was in front of the laptop. What it does is injecting a PowerShell script that executes who am I, and then sends the answer, well, the output of who am I over serial connection to my WeDelete, which is hidden inside the keyboard, and then the WeDelete sends the command back to my phone. So in this case, I didn't use any existing network of the target to exfiltrate that data. So no IDS, EDR, IPS can detect that kind of data. Of course, I can always execute the classic call remotely, so we can still have the command execution capability. Another thing I added, since we have a mobile basement, well, is a microphone, of course. As I said before, many executives love to hear their voice, so why not? How it works, very simple. As usual, command and control, we send an SMS to WeDelete, like make call is the command, with the number of the attacker that we received the call. Then WeDelete receive the SMS, enables the microphone, and calls back the attacker. So in that case, instead of being my mobile phone, could have been a mobile gateway or these web services that act like VoIP gateways where it could automatically record all day long. Another nice thing I wanted to add, and is always a win-win situation, is the capability to conduct mouse jacking attacks. If you ever try, how many of you heard about mouse jacking attacks? Okay, not many. Okay, cool. So write it down, check mouse jacking attacks, because if you're a red teamer or a pen tester and you turn it on, this kind of hardware devices for hunting for vulnerable mice, keyboards, presenters around the target building, you will always find at least one vulnerable. You just need one to pop a shell and then do lateral movement inside the corporate environment and so on. So what it does, mouse jacking? Mouse jacking is a very nice research initially made by Mark Newling in 2016, if I remember correctly, and was targeting some wireless mice and keyboards from Dell, Amazon, Microsoft, and mainly Logitech. So if you have one of these brands, we'll start to be aware that the older versions are vulnerable, and we can prove it right now. There are publicly available tools for that. And the new version of Logitechs are vulnerable as well. Right now, Marcus, the guy that we will see later, he developed Pompai, is working with the Logitech Computer Emergency Response team to patch the new versions. So also the new versions of Logitechs are vulnerable. So just keep it in mind if you're using in some critical environments. So what it does with Delete with this NRF chipset? Well, here are a couple of demos. Here I will show you right now another demo. So imagine of course, with Delete was designed with in mind the ability to operate in standalone mode. So without being plugged on a USB device, USB port. So in this case, you just need a LiPo battery and can operate in standalone mode. So in this case, this proof of concept is about with Delete. With Delete working in standalone mode, in search and destroy mode. So practically is keep looking around for vulnerable devices and keep attacking them in loop. So no, completely search and destroy mode. So in this case, I'm playing with Fruit Ninja. Here, thing. This video was recorded with my drone standing with Delete on it. So as you can see there, you can run outside a building on 6th floor of a building. So you can see here, I injected myself with a fake version of WannaCry. So imagine like you walking around the center of Melbourne, corporate environments, and riding. I know it's kind of illegal, but yeah, never mind. Flying around this kind of little drone with Delete and a LiPo battery in standalone and search and destroy mode. So that would be pretty cool. Since I had the capability from a hardware point of view, I wanted to add some basic. Here is not any close to Yardstick 1 capabilities because I'm not using the CC, the Texas Instrument CC1111 chipset, though we can still use very basic external modules. In this case, I'm attacking ASK, amplitude shifting key, OOK, frequencies. In this case, it's an alarm system. So again, it's working in a standalone mode, so you don't need to plug it in a USB device to operate. So you can just weaponize the plasma ball, leave it there, even if it's not connected, will still be operative for a while, of course, depending on the LiPo battery. So in this case, I keep pressing, just as a proof of concept, I keep pressing like disarm packet. And I sent a message to with Delete over SMS to keep listening traffic on the air and decoding the data and sending me back. So now with Delete, as you can see, it's decoding and sending me back the packets. Disarm packets. Of course, from software point of view, can do even better. Now that you imagine that instead of sniffing for a disarm packet, we sniff for the ARM packet, or we sniff for any kind of packet close by that alarm system. You know that most of the time this shitty alarm system have not very huge binary distance between the disarm and ARM packet. So you can use with Delete by modifying the software to fuzz, to brute force those bit sequence to find, from disarm packet you can figure out the disarm packet. and vice versa, of course. So it's quite easy for this kind of alarm system. So in this case, what I need to do now that I have the packet sequence, strip out the 0 that are useless preamble, and then send back the packet itself. Because of course, in this case, to with delete are connected both receiver and transmitter, so we have both capabilities. So in this case, I programmed with delete to send 50 times the same packet just to show you the spikes there. And of course, if there was audio and you would be able to understand Russian, the alarm system would have said that the system is disarmed. So yeah, Chinese guys failed and sent me the Russian version. So I had to find out what was saying first. So of course, depending on the external daughter board you will use, mini daughter board you will use, you can cover different frequencies: 315, 433, 868, 915 megahertz, or even different modulations like ASK. Most of the alarm systems still use ASK. Otherwise, I found a manufacturer that is selling this kind of daughter boards for FSK or 2FSK. So in this case, it's a very cheap yardstick one. I didn't have time to embed the Texas Instruments CC1111 or 1101, but that's another project. So probably there would be a with Super Elite or something like that. Of course, we can do fuzzing, brute forcing, jamming, and now I'm working on a proof of concept for roll jam attack. Roll jam was presented by Semi a few years ago, and is about bypassing advanced alarm system or cars. They use usually roll jam algorithms. Rolling code algorithms. And another thing, well, since we are dealing with RF, well, when I was in Black Hat Europe last year, I talked with a guy, Federico from Trend Micro, and he told me, you should wait January when I will present a new research I've made about cranes. I couldn't wait that, so I started to look around. And once the research was made public, well, I started to literally play with it. So the idea is that many cranes out there in the world are using RF radio controllers, right? So does it ring a bell, radio? So of course, the nice thing and obvious nowadays is that they are vulnerable to replay attacks and other kind of attacks. But what I care mostly was the replay attacks. So what I've done, I immediately looked on the market and I bought a quite cheap real crane controller, radio controller, receiver, and transmitter. And since I don't have enough money to buy a real and space to buy a real crane, I bought a model of it. So, but the remote, so the receiver and transmitter of that, of this proof of concept is a real one. It's used in real cranes or smaller cranes. So in this case, here is my little toy. So this is a real controller. As you can see, I can move left and right, up and down the crane. And now I just use, send an SMS to with delete crane sniffer. So again, we'll sniff the air. 30,000 is 30,000 milliseconds. So now I have 30 seconds of time gap to just play around. I can, of course, extend the time for sniffing more. And then all the packets will start to flow. So here I'm just, generating traffic to show you that I is sniffing. So now it's still sniffing data, sending back to with delete. And now, once again, what we will do, we will replay it. Of course, I modified, I coded that part of the firmware of with delete in a way that will send not just that packet that was sniffed, that will send it like 100 times in a way that, you will see that the crane will move like almost 180 degrees. So it's like, so here we strip the zeros that we don't need. We send the command like crane tx. As proof of concept, the remote is there, so I'm not using it. And the crane is moving almost 180 degrees. So now imagine something like that in a crowded area, like center of a city, or even like places like, Dubai or Abu Dhabi, where cranes are standing like 200 meters up in the sky. So, so it's going to be pretty dangerous, I guess, when I release it. But hey, what can I do? The guy, when I asked him, what about disclosure, responsible thingy, and so on, he told me after the talk, he told me that like around 40% of those vulnerable remote controllers will not be fixed because it's not easy to fix them. I mean, they need to call back, manufacturer need to call them back, pop open probes, and test points, and reflash it. So good luck with that. Next device, Pompeii. Pompeii was developed by Marcus Manx and can be seen as as you can see from the logo, is sort of Bash Bunny on steroids. Yes, we don't like much Hack 5 guys, but what can I do? It's a Bash Bunny on steroids. Is open source. This time the hardware is just a Raspberry Pi Zero W, so with a wireless chipset in it, broken wireless chipset. And what it is a hardware implant and highly customizable USB attack platform. So you can do really cool stuff with it. Sadly, it's slightly bigger than with Injector and with Elite, so it's a bit harder to weaponize USB devices, but though I still weaponize the plasma ball with that, so it still works fine. So, which are the main features of Pompeii? Well, as well, bypass air gap restrictions. In this case, gives a very nice shell. You will in real time. We'll see later how. Has better performances than US Abuse because here we are talking about not a AVR MCU, but we're talking about ARM processor and has even an acceptable RAM size, so better performances. This time it allows also to emulate, despite keyboard and mouse, since it supports CDC gadgets, it allows to emulate also network interfaces. So through the USB port, you can, once it's connected to the target, you will see that it creates a network interface, like, Ethernet network interface. So in this case, it supports then the so-called Win10 lock picker. Actually, we have two versions of the lock picker feature. The first one was patched by Microsoft around 2017, end of 2017, but still it's worth mentioning because, sometimes, sysadmins do not patch properly. So knowing that. So what it does is Pompeii gets plugged into a computer target machine and creates a network interface. And then that network interface starts to listen for net and TLM v2 hashes. And what it does, it just tries to either do a dictionary attack or a brute force attack in real time to figure out if the password is, easy enough to be broken. If it's found the password, then we'll type in, emulate a keyboard, and type in and log in inside the target machine. Now, 2 weeks ago, Mohammed, a guy from Mexico, published the second version of Windows 10 Lock Picker for Pompeii. And instead of using net and TLM v2 hashes that were fixed, this leakage was fixed by Microsoft, is using just SMB brute forcing. So once again, if the password policy in your company or in Target is not strong enough, you can break it. And my favorite feature of Pompeii is the Wi-Fi cover channel. So imagine that you walk around the building, you plug it in on an unlocked laptop, of course, because we cannot bypass, or unless we use the Windows 10 Lock Picker feature. You walk by, plug it in, it will type very fast a PowerShell script, then you unplug, you walk away, go outside the building, plug on your laptop or on a battery pack the Pompeii, it creates a Wi-Fi access point, and then the target machine infected will communicate with your command and control inside the Pompeii through Wi-Fi, but it's not, and here comes the catch, it's not using the usual Wi-Fi as client and access point. It's using the broadcast packets as a sort of tunnel exfiltration channel between the laptop and the Pompeii. So it's undetectable by anyone that is looking at the Wi-Fi network. How it can operate? Pompeii can operate in two ways: on premises or phone home. So on premises, it's simple as you plug it in, creates a Wi-Fi network as with Injector, hidden Wi-Fi network. Outside the building, the attacker connects to it. Easy peasy. The second way is the phone home. So you can either program PwnPy to connect to an existing network. That can be a pentest, Dropbox from the attacker point of view, can be a guest area network, guest Wi-Fi network from the corporate environments you are attacking, or it can be, as I've done, a GSM basement. So I attached a daughter board to PwnPy, and that way I'm using an external mobile operator as exfiltration channel, communication channel, so undetectable as well. Here is a proof of concept about air-gapped environment. So in this case, usual Windows 10, I guess. Yeah, Windows 10 machine, fully patched. Here is the attacker laptop. So now the attacker connects to the existing Wi-Fi network of the PwnPy. Wait for it. It's a Mac this time. Okay, now it's connected. Now the attacker SSH into the PwnPy and fires up the first stage, the first PowerShell stage. So for a few seconds, you will see typing some gibberish thing, then will disappear, will disappear the window, and PwnPy right now is still finishing to type the payload. Now you just type the second stage, shell, and voila. We got a fully working real-time shell that is not using any external communication channel of the target. So no Ethernet, no Wi-Fi. So it's using, the data flow is like that. Computer, USB, PwnPy, Wi-Fi, attacker. So we don't trigger any alert from internal corporate environment point of view. Here is the Windows 10 lock picker feature. So classic Windows 10 box. Of course, that was unpatched. At that time, was vulnerable. Now it's patched, but still, I strongly recommend to test it anyway. So here, PwnPy is plugged in. And here, there is a sequence of LED lights. So depending on how many times it's flashing, it will turn on, will boot Raspberry Pi, will turn on a network interface. Then we start listening for the net and TLMv2 hashes. Then we'll try to brute force those or dictionary attack those hashes with John the Ripper. And then, well, of course, here is a simple password. If the password will be found, we'll automatically emulate a keyboard and type into the laptop, and voila, will be unlocked. So this is the proof of concept that was patched. As I said, a couple of weeks ago was released a new proof of concept with SMB brute forcing. Actually, it's already online, so you can find it on Twitter. And that works pretty fine even with patch versions because, it's just the classic feature of SMB. There are some mods that some people made around. For example, in my case, I made with this very thin daughter board to have a mobile communication channel, exfiltration channel, and communication channel. Another guy used another board with a mobile basement. Someone put a very nice TFT LCD in a way that you can decide which payload run and and so on. So yeah, there is a nice community around that. Simple mitigation, because usually people is asking me after the talk, how do I mitigate all of that? Well, it's not very easy. Well, the first rule of thumb is do not trust unknown devices, any of them, not just flash drives. I mean, we always eventually pop open the device that you have, you are suspicious of. At most, use a USB condom, so cut off the data plus and data minus of a USB cable, or look for DLP solutions that really block HID. I've tried some DLP solutions, and they are failing badly. Some of them, they just don't care about serial ports. Some of them, they don't care about, they are not able to detect spoofing VID and PID, so vendor ID and product ID. So just look around for some good ones. If you are on the cheap, there are some open source projects that are working quite fine. One is two of them are Windows based. One is called Duck Hunt, and the other one Beamgun. So I will not describe them in particular because I have no time, but you can look at them. Are pretty cool. Both of them I tried, and they're doing a quite good job. From Linux point of view, for the Linux guys that like working on the bare metal version of them. Well, the idea is simple. We need to block the 03 class of HID devices. So by creating a rule, UDEV rule, we can block the addition of any new device. And then we can unlock with another rule, just in case you want to add more of them. For the user-friendliness point of view, we have other two open source projects that can block USB devices, heat attacks. One is USB def and the other USB guard. So both of them I tried as well, quite good. So I suggest you try them. And now come to another device. Actually, I will try to stay a bit general because I know that Alex, the speaker after me, will do a deep dive on access control systems. So I will try to stay very generic because he will mention RFID tool as well. So RFID tool is a hardware implant used against Wigan-based access control systems that allows a threat actor to sniff and replay and or brute force data like PIN, codes, and IDs, UIDs of cards. Of course, we can use it also as a standalone mode into a long-range RFID reader to have a bit of fun. So Wigan Proctor, very short. Is a very old bus protocol used in access control system. Of course, probably many of you or probably all of you knows it. The data is sent in plain text over two wires, data plus, data minus, like USB practically. And what we can do, well, with an implant, we can be in the middle of that. And then we can do sniff, replay, and clone attacks, right? So in this case, how many of you have seen around people handling around during, commuting, bus, metro, underground, or during a lunch break, their lovely badge? That's really bad. Because, well, what we can do, we can use a long-range reader weaponized with RFID tool to just sniff them. And actually, the prox card to a reader, long-range reader, it can be like 80 centimeters away. So it's really, really powerful. And I love it. I mean, I'm always using it during engagements, either the HID prox card 2 or iClass or EM, this one, EM41XX readers. So as you can see, it's very simple. You take our RFID tool, which has ASP Wi-Fi chipset as well. So it creates a Wi-Fi network. You connect to it. As you can see, there is a very simple but useful UI. And then you just need a battery pack, long-range reader, RFID tool, and that's it. You have done a long-range sniffer that you can use with your Proxmark to sniff and then clone with Proxmark, Proxcar 2, for example, cards. Or this is a real engagement, for example, of a target company I was working on. So this was a rear entrance of the building that didn't have even a camera. They had that lovely HID mid-range reader. So I just popped out the case, plugged in the RFID tool, and then I was able to sniff. I let it there for like a day, and then I got a bunch of data that I could have easily replayed or even, clone new cards. So in this case, this is a very simple proof of concept. Probably I will not play it all because the next talk would be about it. So here, this is a bio-class HID global high security reader, but sadly is using vegan protocol. So with RFID tool in the middle, we can sniff all the data within, right? So in this case, I'm logging in with a bunch of ways, like RF fingerprint, PIN codes, and so on. And if we look at the browser perspective, these are the data that were sniffed. So the first one is the binary sequence connected to my fingerprint. Of course, it's not my fingerprint, but it's just fingerprint data stored in the device itself. So it's not sent, thankfully, for us on the bus. But what we need is that UID there. So that UID is stored in the controller as allowed entrance. So we just need to replay it. So in this case, I replayed, sorry, let me go a bit back. Okay, here we sniffed also the PIN codes. So in that case, okay. There I sniffed a couple of PIN codes. So one was 6666 and the other 2019. So in this case, I just need to take the bit sequence of those digits. So in this case, just 4 times 6 in binary and replay back. So RFID tool will send through the wire that sequence, and the controller will just think that is coming from the reader, and voila. As I said, you will see later more about it, so I won't spoil much. Some mitigations. Well, each of those readers have a tamper switch. How many of you have seen or implemented these kind of readers and used the tamper switch? One. Okay. One. Okay. So many companies doesn't even know that exists from from user point of view. So imagine like I've seen only one time implemented a tamper switch, but the security guard was getting an alert on the the access control software, but was not even bothering about thinking why is happening that. So there is anti-tampering switch. Use it. We know we can bypass it anyway, but still. Other mitigation can be encrypt vegan data, but for that you need a new reader and new controller. So sad, and many companies will not pay for replacing all the access control system, readers and controllers. You can upgrade to TCP/IP based as well. You need a new reader and controller, and then we open to a new attack vector, TCP/IP based. So sad but true. One thing that we can do though, a bit hackish, but it may work. Do you remember how you were catching telephone spy bugs back in 90s, 80s, and so on? You were diffing the amperage on a network, right? On a local network. Because as soon as you plug it in a device well, in this case on a vegan bus, it's consuming, okay, current. So you can diff an initial situation where it's clear, and then every time someone adds an implant in that, it draws current, and you can detect it. Or you can epoxy all the things, but that one won't work for maintenance, so just kidding. And then we come to the final device. It's still under design right now, the final version. Right now, you can still develop your own prototype, though. So I will talk a bit more about it. Box is a penetration testing drop box designed to fulfill red teamers' needs during their engagements. It has a lot of features. My favorite ones are the dedicated cover case. Sorry. So in this case, it's acting as a power strip or power socket device, embedded Wi-Fi chipset, 12 gigabit network interface, because we want to do man-in-the-middle attacks in invisible ways, or we can use it to bypass .1x, so network access control systems. Many banks use that kind of authentication to prevent malicious user to plug it in just Ethernet, on an Ethernet port everywhere in the building. So, but it can be bypassed, some version of it, of course. So the main idea was, and again, I'm sorry for Hack 5, but yeah. So first thought when I saw the Tetra pineapple was like, what? 250 euro for these packs? That doesn't make sense. So I keep digging, and then I saw the PowerPone deal, and that was even more insane. But I can do better, like my carpenter can do better with 15 euro. So I started, actually the Tetra was released later than 2006, but already in 2006 I was working on some pen test drop boxes. At the beginning was a very nano Pico mini ITX, but the cost was kind of acceptable. Then 2012 Raspberry Pi came out, so voila, started the pen test drop boxes, time for the chip. But was not enough. Then recently, in 2016, started to appear these micro SBC single board computers from China. They were kind of good, so I started to work on them. So the idea is I use the Volo power line adapter. I stripped out all the circuitry inside it and just put one of those single board computers with a power supply, and that works perfectly fine. This photo I've made is from a real engagement where I placed this lovely device into the IT room of the room of the IT guys, and they didn't even bother to think what was that thing connected to the power and to the Ethernet. So that really worked really cool. So I strongly suggest you, even before waiting for Box release, to try it out. Just the Volo case is like $15 on eBay. and then another, what, $15 for those kind of single board computers from China. So it's really cool and really acceptable. So that was the first version. Then I implemented the second version with dual gigabit Ethernet in a way to do man in the middle in an invisible way or to bypass .1x network access control. And then I started to realize that those single board computers from China are cheap. They do not have very good specifications. So I started to look around, evaluating board, evaluating power strip, sockets, and then I ended up, as usual, I don't care, I will do by myself. So I started to design case and board. These are pretty much plus or minus the final specs of the SBC single board computer I'm designing right now. Well, the main features were ARM quad core, because we need some CPU power. We need also RAM, acceptable one, at least 2 GB RAM. And the most important for me were the 2 gigabit Ethernet ports, the Atheros Wi-Fi. We know the Atheros is one of the best chipsets out in the market, well, Qualcomm nowadays, for conducting Wi-Fi attacks like Karma and so on. And then optional wireless attacks like NRF for mouse jacking, and some better daughter boards than with Elite. So the CC1101 chipset, like the Yardstick 1 style RF attacks. Purposes. Well, someone one time asked me, why all this mess? Well, we can use it as a pen test Dropbox, because at the end, POTA box means penetration over the air Ethernet box, right? But can be used also for something else. When I designed the case and the circuitry, I decided to add some GPIOs like Raspberry Pis to add relays there. Then you can use also for home automation if you are into electronics and stuff like that. So there might be, the end usage might be multi-purpose. About cover cases, well, I like covert operations. The main idea was to use a power strip case, but while working on some prototypes, I found in the market there are nice standalone Bluetooth speakers with embedded LiPo batteries, or some strange docking stations for mobile phones. So I weaponized both of them, and they are working pretty fine. So yeah, that might be another option, out on the market already, that just buy on eBay or AliExpress and stuff like that and weaponize them. So pretty working out. And what I'm working now is a software orchestrator. Practically is, do you know Cobalt Strike from pen testing point of view? So Cobalt Strike is or Fruity Wi-Fi are both very nice software frameworks with a nice UI, very user-friendly. So I'm designing something like that, something user-friendly. So imagine that you have a set of these POTA boxes that you drop on the premises of the target, and then all of them calls home either through 3G, 4G, 2G, or through the network of the target, and then you see all of them in a nice UI. So in that way, that's why I call it orchestrator. So it's like, it will be a Docker that you can deploy on a VPS, and you can control. They will automatically call back to that UI, and you will see all of them, operate all of them, and will have the usual nice features. So yeah, that's how it's going to be. Hopefully, after I will release with Delete in a few weeks, I should be continuing with this as well. Let me see. Okay, I'm done. I have other like 20 slides about forensics, but I will just leave for you for reading afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Awesome. So in about 3 minutes, we'll kick off with the next talk. So stretch your legs, and we'll see you back here in 3-4 minutes.